In the book, Making It on Broadway by David Weiner, actor Doug Storm tells the following story. I was with the national tour of Les Miserables, and we were doing poster sales for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. If someone donated $50, they would receive a poster signed by the entire cast. After one performance, I was in costume, selling posters in the lobby, and I noticed a little girl who was looking at me like I was the Messiah. I heard her say, "Please, Mom, please, please, can I have a poster? Please, 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 please." Her mom said no, and they walked away. Then there was a moment I will never quite forget. In my left ear, quite distinctly, I heard a little whisper that said, "Go, Doug, go." Without another thought, I took off in full costume, ran outside the theater, and saw the girl and her mother down the block. I ran down the street after them. I approached the girl and I said, "Excuse me, you forgot your poster." She turned around and just stared at me, and I handed her the poster and ran back to the theater before anyone could say anything. I went into the company manager's office and I said, "I gave one of the posters away. Here's $50. This is my contribution to Broadway Cares." A few days later, I came in to work and there was a letter on the call board. It read, "Dear cast of Les Miserables, you moved me so much. Thank you. I also want to thank you for giving my daughter a poster. I don't know who you were, but it was a nice young man in costume, and he was gone before anyone could say thank you to him. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my daughter. She's sick. She's so sick that she wasn't expected to live past a very young age. She always wanted to see Les Miserables, and they actually snuck her out of the hospital the night that we came to see you so that she could see the show. The tickets were a gift from a family friend. I'm a single mom. Money's really tight. It broke my heart not to be able to buy the poster for my daughter. Thank you so much, whoever you are, for giving it to her. Thank you. Thank you, thank you." Doug looked around, and the entire cast of the show was standing together, reading that letter and weeping. The gifts we give change people's lives, and oftentimes they change people's lives in ways we might never know. The $50 gift that meant more than anyone could have imagined, or the off-chance word that gives someone the hope to keep on going. In church, our gifts transform our community. Every single one of our members gives generously to this community in a variety of different ways. Just this week, 4 of your fellow members agreed to give their expertise to a team that will think through what criteria and precautions we're going to use to reopen the church safely and when. If you're wondering when, which you might be wondering, we don't know yet. But this team of folks who have expertise in this area, who have committed their time and their expertise, will let you know as soon as we have a policy in place. Similarly, we have people with financial expertise on our finance team, and with building expertise on our buildings team, and with caring expertise on our pastoral care team. And today, in Celebration Sunday, our members are making financial commitments to the church for next church year. Every single gift is part of what makes church happen. Every single gift, no matter how large or seemingly small, changes people's lives. In one of our worship associates meetings, Dale Skaggs told a story from when he was serving as a worship associate years ago. When he was leading the welcome on a whim, he encouraged people at church to say hello and introduce themselves to someone that they didn't know before they left church that day. Two people who didn't know one another were sitting near each other, and they said hello that day for the first time. It was the beginning of a lifelong love story. Years later, they told Dale that they hold him responsible for their marriage. That moment of connection in church from Dale's words on a whim changed their lives forever, and it continues to ripple out love today and into the future. For years after Doug Storm ran into that little girl and gave her a Les Miserables poster, he was sitting in the dressing room before a performance of The Scarlet Pimpernel and feeling bitter and jaded. It was the night before the show was scheduled to close, and he was worried about being unemployed again. Storm writes, "Out of nowhere, at the stage door, I heard a little voice. 'Mr. Storm?' I thought, oh God, who is calling me Mr. Storm, for crying out loud? I looked around and I froze. It was the same little girl from 4 years before. That night, the little girl gave Doug Storm a gift and told him that she had been following his work. He invited her to come again the following night backstage for the last show of The Scarlet Pimpernel, and then he resumed getting ready for the show that night. But before he finished putting on his makeup, he stopped and he read the little girl's note to him on her gift. She wrote, "I just want to let you know that I've been accepted to NYU Tisch School of the Arts for drama, and I'm going to enroll because someday I want to be able to give a kid a poster. Thank you for helping shape my life." Doug said that he lost it and started weeping there in the dressing room. He wrote, "Everything came full circle. In a moment of my own despair and selfish, jaded bitterness, there was the kid again. It's why I got into this business in the first place." The gifts we give others change the world, but they also change us. We don't know how our words or our deeds or our resources will land. We don't know how what we give will ripple out into the world. We also don't know the form in which it will return to us, but it will return. We might not hear about it until years later, or we might never hear about it. But because our gifts change people, when they flow out from us, they change the realities of the world in which we live, and that affects us. That story of the couple who met in church, the gift that Dale gave to them through his words didn't only change the couple's life, it also changed Dale. His words on a whim came back to him and they affect him to this day. I've heard Dale tell that story several times because it helped him understand the power of a few simple, loving words encouraging people to connect. It helped him understand how the gifts we give ripple out from us in ways that we might never know. The word commit comes from two separate and seemingly opposite root words in Latin. The root word com means with or together, while the root word meter means to let go, to send. In this church, we come together to make our commitments to one another and to this institution, and then we send them out into the world, not knowing how our words, our gifts, our resources will transform people's lives, but knowing that they will. It's the collaboration, the giving together that makes this powerful and transformative community possible. We can't make this beautiful church transformation machine happen on our own. No one financial gift makes up the whole budget. No individual gift of expertise makes the church function. It's all of us together that make church work. Reverend Kimberly reminded me that when we dedicate the children of the church, we make commitments to them and to their families. We make commitments to be with them in times of struggle and gladness, to delight in their accomplishments and to share in their sorrows, and to encourage them as we grow. We make these promises and hope that we might be worthy guardians of their young lives. We do this in a variety of different ways at church. Every year, we have a religious education program called Mystery Friends, where children in the congregation are paired with adult members as pen pals. Without knowing one another's identity, they write letters to each other for a month, and then they finally meet one another at a religious education party. Last year, the March Mystery Friends Party was the last in-person event of the religious education department before COVID sent us all into the virtual world. Two mystery friends last year, Riley Conan and Elizabeth Martorell, didn't have a chance to meet at that party. They didn't think much of it at the time. They just set another date for them to meet. And then COVID struck. So they rescheduled their meeting for later. And eventually, after a couple of reschedules, they realized, like all of us, that the later, when we would be able to meet in person, wasn't coming anytime soon. So instead of meeting up, these two mystery friends just kept writing letters to one another. Neither of them nor Riley's parents remember making a decision about it. Rather, as Riley's mom, Stacy, said, another letter would arrive and we'd respond to it. At this point, Riley and Elizabeth have been writing to each other for over a year. More than 30 letters back and forth over the course of the pandemic. For Elizabeth, her relationship with Riley was a way to connect with a family in the church and a way to pass on a gift that had been given to her by her older brother. Elizabeth's brother took children very seriously. He gave them his complete attention when he was interacting with them. 10 years older than her, he did this with Elizabeth when she was a child. And now that she's an adult, she makes an effort to share this gift with others. Elizabeth wrote Riley long and familiar letters to show him that he's important by taking the time to write to him. On May 22nd, Elizabeth wrote, "Dear Riley, I apologize for not having replied to your letter sooner. Despite the stay-at-home directive, I'm very busy, but not doing a lot of what I really want to do, like answering your letter. We got home from California just in the nick of time on March 9th. The shutdown began that same week. Life certainly is different. It will take a while for us to get comfortable wearing masks when we go out, but it's so important to do. Do you and your sister have masks? Have you used FaceTime or Zoom yet to talk to your friends online? You mentioned that you miss being able to play with them. I know these times are hard, but I think about the immigrants who came to the US from Europe in previous centuries. When they left home, they really left home. Their goodbyes were permanent. We're so lucky to have ways to talk to and see people who live far away." Yes, Elizabeth, we are so lucky to have this new technology available to us to connect with one another. But here Elizabeth and Riley are using the old-fashioned technology of letter writing to stay in touch. Riley drew a giraffe and he sent it to Elizabeth. And Elizabeth took pictures of the Mexican nativity scene on her mantle and she sent them to Riley at Christmas. Riley wrote about how he loves trains, so Elizabeth sent him postcards from the train museum in Sacramento and looked out for little things that he might be interested in, like using railroad stamps on the letters that she sent him. Stacy said the letter writing has helped Riley learn new things and gave him examples of how to live his Unitarian Universalist values through learning about things like Elizabeth's work on UU the Vote. Riley especially loved learning about Elizabeth's trip to California since he went there too and is hoping to go back someday. Most importantly, though, the letters functioned as a way to stay personally connected in the pandemic. It was an activity that Stacy and Riley could do together, and it gave them a deep personal connection with the church during the pandemic. As their family worked to cope with all the change and the loss and the struggle, it helped to learn that the pandemic was hard on everyone. Stacy also said, while it's always heartwarming when people at church embrace their children, it's been especially meaningful over the past year when they so desperately miss the connections they had in person. To have this intimate connection coming directly into their home through the mailbox, through attentive, caring letters. Right now, it's more difficult to see The way the gifts we give to church change people's lives because we're so spread out across the city and beyond. But it keeps happening. We keep changing one another's lives. We've made promises to one another, commitments to keep showing up and to love each other through the hard stuff, and this pandemic is the hard stuff. Last year, at this time when we had our pledge drive celebration Sunday, it was our first Sunday of virtual church. We never could have imagined our commitments would need to live through a year of physical separation. But they did need to, and they lived through it. Our commitments and our connections keep on living and growing and nourishing our members and our friends and the world beyond us. Our pledge team set a goal this year of 100% participation in this year's pledge drive. And as of last night at 10 p.m., we had 80% of our pledges in, with an overall increase of 9%. That is huge. It's a higher percentage of increase and pledges in on Celebration Sunday than we've had any year since I've been serving here. And it's just amazing. First Church, you floor me. Thank you. Let's keep going and get to 100%. So the 20% that are out there, the 75 households that haven't turned in your pledge commitments, please turn them in today. Turn them in as soon as possible. And if we can get to a 10% overall increase, we'll be able to keep the programs that you love running, programs like Mystery Friends and choir, and our choral scholars and our expanded music ministry, programs that keep you feeling connected and alive. We'll be able to pay our staff fairly and keep our church moving into the 21st century. The gifts you give today will change people's lives in this congregation and beyond it. They will ripple out love into the community as we send them out. They will change the future by holding this place in trust for those who come after us, just as those who came before us held it in trust for us. Our commitments together change the world, even as they change us. May it be so, and amen.